Tuesday after 6 o'clock, of course, today. Drinks trolley time. I think we definitely need a little Tuesday pick-me-up. What have you got to offer today, Suze?
Well, I had this one yesterday. It's very delicious. It's a 0% wine. It's called a Le Antidotes, and it's a grape juice blended with 15 herbs and lemon and apple and ginger from around the vineyard in Beaujolais. And it's really, really delicious. Quite herby. Tasty.
Yes.
Matt won't like it. But
It doesn't sound like his kind of thing. Okay, very good. I'll have a half a pint. Thank you very much, Nick.
Yeah.
Or do you have it more? Is it like a gin and tonic? Is it like half a glass kind of thing?
Well, it's like a wine. It's,
okay,
it's
a
a
couple of
little
glasses.
bit
Yeah, 0%.
fizzy.
Help yourself.
Today's confession, I would say 12 certificate.
Oh, lovely.
And contains reprehensible behaviour.
Oh dear.
Don't try any of this
We
at
do
home.
not condone. Yeah.
Not forgiven.
It comes from Brian Moore Lookalike.
Oh,
Thanks, Brian Moore Lookalike. Let's call you Brian.
yeah.
Father Simon and the Brothers and Sisters of Mercy. Back in the late 1980s, I was an aspiring Brian Moore hooker for my local rugby team, playing at a decent level. I was invited to play for an end-of-season invitational team, quite prestigious, and a free after-game steak barbecue. Well, they had me at free food, never mind the steak. At the pre-game warm-up, I had an issue with my lower back, and the team captain offered me some special rub that would help. I can't remember if he was a vet or a doctor.
Right.
It's kind of important, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Really?
Got my special rub.
No. Anyway, the rub worked a treat. Does sound like a barbecue special, really, doesn't it?
Got my,
The rub worked a treat. Great game followed by a juicy steak. I had the chance to thank the vet or doctor and said how amazing the rub had worked, and my back was still a little bit hot. He offered me a large tub of the said rub with an explicit warning that before use I must cut it with at least 50% Vaseline. I willingly promised that I would do that, and I look forward to using it in the final game the following Saturday.
I wonder where this is going. Okay.
Oh dear.
And the game was under 30s versus the over 30s. The last game of the season was always under 30s versus over 30s. It's our annual bloodbath in which the under 30s try to run around the old men and the old men try to punch the enthusiasm out of the kids. So much so that in the previous year's coin toss, the over 30s captain presented the under 30s captain with an actual body bag. So I hope this sets the scene for what follows. Pre-match, I had volunteered to set the pitch up ready for the game, flags, posts, protectors, that kind of thing. I completed this, and because it was a really hot spring day, I thought I'd sit in the changing rooms to cool down and wait for the teams to arrive. Now, what is that saying, Father Simon? The devil makes work for idle hands, something like that. And I remember sitting in the cool over 30s dressing room. I remember sitting in the cool and I could see the over 30s dressing room across the corridor, complete with their team kit bag, and no one was around. I looked at my kit bag with its full container of the rub. As I said it was a scorching hot day, but I then chuckled in a heinous manner.
Like that.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Just like
Father
that.
Simon, remember this is the 80s. Playing shirts were not super light fabrics like they are now. No, they were wired-haired, indestructible torture coats that, when wet, weighed a lot more than my conscience ever did. I think you're thinking of like the 1930s, but still, anyway. I recall smearing their 8 forward shirts with tiny amounts of the rub, really, really, really tiny, with a big smile on my face. The old men were tough as old boots, weren't they? I didn't even let on to my teammates what I'd done. This was a blessing, as it turned out. The game kicked off. It was a hot, scorching day, as I think I might have said. Within minutes, everyone was sweating profusely, and at every scrum and line-out, I could see a marked deterioration in the over-30s forwards. Red, swollen faces, discomfort, tugging and pulling at their shirts. After approximately 20 minutes, the over-30s forwards started leaving the field and running to the dressing rooms. What had happened? Everybody stood in bewilderment. Was this a pre-planned scheme from the old men? They could not be prized back to the game, so the match was eventually abandoned. In the aftermath, all 8 forwards developed rashes under their armpits, some losing all their underarm hair completely. With some, it actually straightened their hair, which was strange. All walked like bodybuilders for the next week. What caused this? Did the laundry use the wrong chemical? I kept quiet, fearing for my life. Such was the palpable anger and discomfort. I did try to confess at a players' reunion just last year, nearly 40 years after the ill-fated game, but as soon as I'd said, Can you remember the under-over 30s game that was abandoned? The outburst of anger shut my mouth immediately. They may be ancient, but they're still hard as coffin nails. Father Simon, I don't ask for forgiveness for the discomfort caused to the over 30s forwards. They gave me a black eye in the following year, so fair enough. Not even to the laundries. They were only asked and they were never penalised. But I do ask forgiveness from the vet, or was he a doctor, with whom I made that promise to always cut the rub before use. To this day, I still have no idea what was in it. Yours sincerely, the Brian Moore lookalike. Well, a tale of sporting irresponsibility.
Yes.
That I feel as though Sister Susie is going to clamp down on very hard. We can't be party to this kind of thing, can we, Suze?
Well, no, it is very irresponsible, and essentially it's just the game was abandoned. You didn't even win. What was the point of it? Absolutely no point whatsoever, apart from people got hurt, and for that I don't condone it whatsoever. Brian Moore lookalike. And also, why are you taking dodgy things off someone who you don't even know if they're a dog or a vet or a doctor anyway?
Or a dog.
Or a dog. Yeah.
Could be, who knows? Just don't do it. Danger.
Danger, high wattage from the mix, from the doctor, or was it a dog?
Or was it a vet?
Or was it a vet? Brother Matthew, what do you say?
I mean, as soon as this confession started with the words about being involved in a rugby club and involving hot rub, I have to think I was fearing the worst, really. But I'm going to forgive because, I mean, he only smeared it on the tops. Could have been a lot worse. Could have been on the shorts.
I was afraid that was going to happen.
Definitely going to be happening. And as Suze points out, normally the whole point of these matches is that they may be violent, the over 30s, but they soon boil out, and the under 30s always win because they just run around for 80 minutes. So normally so you'd have thought, match abandoned, that's not good news for them. So all in all, I think they all learned a lesson and definitely forgiven. Yes, forgive.
So it's the people's verdict, please. What do you say to the Brian Moore lookalike? Forgiven or not? 61054 on the text. First word is silent. Just before the news, we had a confession from a Brian Moore lookalike, a story of a back rub. Did it come from the vet or did it come from the doctor? He was never quite sure.
No.
But when applied to the over 30s rugby shirts, particularly the forwards, the end result was match abandoned. People still feel sore 40 years later. Some lost a lot of hair. Not funny, obviously, but what did the people's verdict deliver?
Not forgiven, says Michelle in Sevenoaks. Never understood why people find these kinds of pranks funny. I'd be so annoyed if my armpit hair burnt off. No wonder they were all so angry after all these years. Andy says forgiven. Brilliant confession. Absolutely hilarious. I totally agree with Matt.
Is that right?
But Eddie in Edinburgh says not forgiven. Not least for bringing back memories of failing in the school football team trials, being coerced onto the rugby team, only to stand around on the wing during the coldest winter in memory. Also, I haven't had my dinner, and I now have the pungent smell memory of a biohazard heat rub.
That's pretty much where it was. Thank you for the verdicts. Thank you for the confessions. Lots come in over the weekend, and more will be delivered this week and then in our podcast on Friday. If you have a confession for us, send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. 5:47. Time for the drinks trolley, just ahead of the confession. Let's see what refreshment we're being allocated today. What do you have for us, Suze?
A very delicious and nice and fruity pale ale, 4%, very delicious. A special one for Record Store Day, which was earlier in the month, and it was brewed by Daya Brewing. Very delicious, and some really cool artwork on the can, if you can find it.
Very nice. Matt, we'll have a pint at the end of the
Sounds
show.
good.
Thank you very much indeed. Today's confession comes from Max. Thank you, Max, for today's tale. Father Simon, the Confessional Collective. We travel back to either the late 1980s or the early 1990s for this story, when I worked in local radio in a city that had probably best remain unidentified. But some people will probably identify it anyway. I was nominally the news and sport editor. But there were only two of us in the department, covering 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. So my permanently cold, tired and hungry but lovely accomplice and I were spread pretty thin. Nevertheless, there was always time to be found for elaborate, and this is a surprise that I've included it, April Fool hoaxes, because normally we don't like this kind of thing. And as the cold, tired and hungry one showed little enthusiasm for them, I could run rampant, and this one took me weeks of preparation. The drive time presenter, Dougie, now very much the late Dougie, a prolifically sweaty and astonishingly overweight Glaswegian former taxi driver, was even moved to say and cue Simon's best sweaty and overweight Glaswegian former taxi driver's accent.
Yeah.
That was your best one yet, he said. So the premise of the story was that the city's jewel in the crown, the most historic building other than the cathedral and assorted churches, a former butter market, had been bought by a wealthy Californian vineyard owner who planned to dismantle it brick by brick and rebuild it in his vineyard. My wife's aunt's American husband was in the UK at the time, and we met up with him agreeing to be recorded playing the part of the sun-kissed, relaxed, multi-billionaire Californian vineyard owner who was recorded saying something to the effect of, here cue Simon's best sun-kissed, relaxed, multi-billionaire Californian vineyards owner's accent. I fell in love with the building the first time I saw it.
It's my favourite.
I was willing to pay whatever it cost me, goddammit. I'll give it a good home and protect it for posterity.
Hot diggity. Wow.
Oh, I hope there's more from him.
Yeah. Bring him back.
The local MP, who rose to the dizzy heights of the cabinet and held a very senior position in the Conservative Party, agreed to take part. He was an absolutely fantastic chap who always had time for everyone in his constituency. He was originally from Northern Ireland.
Even better.
And retained his Ulster lilt. While sounding like the most reassuring uncle you could have, was always smiling when he spoke. He agreed to be recorded, saying something along the lines of, cue Simon's best reassuring, avuncular, smiling Ulsterman accent.
Here it comes.
Catch yourself on. It's an absolute outrage, so it is. That the council is selling off our heritage. We must stop this, undoubtedly. And so on the morning of April the 1st, all the serious stuff was strangely consigned to the back burner as the morning news bulletin all led with the exclusive story about this 450-year-old building being sold. Mindful of the angry scenes the previous year when I had revealed how London Zoo would be relocating to the site currently occupied by the city's football club, leaving them homeless, I thought it was wise to keep a low profile. However, by 10 o'clock, I couldn't resist answering the phone any longer. And there was the chief press officer of the city council, somebody that I allowed to beat me at squash every week so I could get some decent stories out of her. She seemed a little, shall we say, agitated. Sorry, Simon, but she was from the valleys of South Wales.
Oh, another one! Oh, this is great! I love it!
Cue Simon's best woman from the South Wales Valleys accent.
Yeah.
What have you done, she said. Our phone systems crashed for the first time ever. It's never happened before. We've been swamped with angry people thinking we're selling off the city's heritage. So Simon, Matt, Susie, Holly, Nigel and Ken. Maybe Katie. I don't ask forgiveness for the listeners who were so gullible they fell for it, or from the local newspaper reporter who was assigned to the story because their news editor thought it was something genuine that they'd missed. I ask for forgiveness from the city council receptionist who had to deal with the onslaught. I really hadn't seen it working quite so well as it did. For the record, all of the interviewees who took part have passed away, bless them, although it's nothing to do with me.
No.
And I saw my former colleague for the first time a few weeks ago. She's still cold, tired and hungry. And for some reason, I don't work in radio anymore.
Imagine.
Well, here's the thing, you see. I don't feel confident enough to do a Welsh, Glaswegian or Ulster accent.
No, but...
Americans, I don't really care about. Because that's fine. Because in general, they don't listen to the show.
Oh, right. Oh, I see.
Anyway, also, Susie tells me what I can do, what I can't do.
Okay.
What do you say, Suze, to Max?
Well, Max, I took issue to start with where you said that you had no time and you said how busy you were and how you were flat out and you and your colleague and you didn't take a break. But then you said you still had time for elaborate pranks.
Yes.
And that those two sentences don't go together
That's
for me.
true.
And although I do like the American accent, is one of my favourites that you do. I'm not sure that all these people were from all these different places. I think maybe Max is just trying to get you to do all the different accents. And for that reason, I can't forgive him.
I cut out the paragraph which said that the council's mayor was a Fenlander. Right. And I thought, I'm not doing I think that's kind of Lincolnshire, Cambridgeshire kind of thing. I'm not even going to try that either.
on.
Anyway, Matthew, what do you say?
Well, I mean, if it was just a ruse to get you to do all those accents, I am definitely going to forgive, because that definitely worked. Catch yourself on. Well, wow, took us right into Ulster, that, didn't it? Well
Yes.
done. So it did. So it did. Yes. And everyone was taking part. They all took part and enjoyed it. And if anyone fell for it, then they're just a little bit thick. So for all of those reasons, because a full house of accents, I'm definitely going to forgive
all of them, from California to Northern California.
Yes, indeed.
Via Texas. Okay, people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Max, yes or no, for his radio prank? 61054, first word is Simon. Just before the news, a confession, a local radio confession from Max, who was news and sports editor in a city as yet unidentified, but I think we worked out
Yeah, I think we have. Yeah.
where it is pretty much. It was an elaborate prank with many accents needed to bring the whole story to life, which I think I succeeded in doing. Anyway, the people's verdict is in.
So Ricky in Chester says, you have to forgive for the full house of accents.
Yes.
Absolutely love it. Gemma in Surrey says, not forgiven. Making up stories on the radio, dreadful. Why on earth did anyone put him near a radio station? But Ellie May and Dutchie in Leicester say, absolutely forgiven. We agree 100% with Matt. Besides, who doesn't like a good prank? Excellent accent, Simon.
I think that's true, even though there was in effect only one other than my own. Anyway, if you have a confession, particularly if you have a radio confession, we would like to do those. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. So it's confession time, but first of all, a little bit of refreshment I think is required. And Susie, not in the pub, but actually in the studio. But she still brought the trolley, which is a very lovely thing.
Yeah.
And what are we helping ourselves to here?
Well, I thought we would have a very delicious albarino, which is very, very tasty, and Matt can correct my pronunciation here, but Rias Baxis albarino from Galicia.
Yeah, I mean, Rias Bashas is probably, but it's clear, it's near enough.
Patatas bravas.
Patatas bravas. But yes, very delicious, nice and fresh. Very tasty albarino.
Okay, very good. That's what we're having from the trolley. There'll be more drinks with Nigel later. Today's confession comes from Lorraine. Hello, Lorraine. Dear Father Simon, St. Matt, the patron saint of the ashamed, and the tireless angels of mercy who have seen it all.
Yep.
I come before you, not just in shame, but possibly in breach of several public health guidelines. Let me transport you back to the 1980s. A glorious era of questionable fashion, fabulous hair, and zero adult supervision. I was young. I was carefree. I was gorgeous. I spent my days swooning over OMD and Gary Newman, rather than worrying about things like accountability and the consequences of one's actions.
Well, no one
That's
did.
such a modern trend. That
It was
is.
the 80s. It's fine.
I lived at home with my parents, and frankly, far too many brothers than is strictly decent. My father at the time worked for, and also he's continued to be my father, worked for a rather famous food manufacturer. As a perk of the job, Dad was permitted to bring home bags of unlabeled tins for us to enjoy at our leisure. Each tin had its own code. ST was tomato soup. BV was baked beans. Like a low-budget MI5 for canned goods. That's basically what it was. At least that way, we stood a chance of not accidentally pouring custard over our fish fingers. So we were in. We had some decent, cheap food.
Okay.
Why are you looking puzzled?
Right, good.
The codes.
Anyway, yeah, it doesn't matter. The codes don't matter, do they?
ST for tomato
Yeah, no,
soup,
I've got it,
beefy
yeah.
for
You
baked
think it
beans.
should be TS?
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense.
Anyway, everything was straightforward until that day. There I was, resplendent in my 80s chic, probably humming along to Spandau Ballet while aggressively backcombing my fringe, when I decided I simply must have a bowl of tomato soup. I rummaged through our larder and located what I believed to be a tin of warm, comforting ST, according to our code. Oh, how wrong I was. Upon cracking open the tin with my trusty tin opener, because I am nothing if not practical, I was met not with a soothing red hug of tomato soup, but with something far more sinister. It was creamy, it was pale, it was suspiciously chickeny. Ugh. Now, we were raised never to waste food. But equally, I was raised never to eat chicken soup when I fancied tomato. So in an act of both thrift and treachery, I simply put the tin back, retrieved a proper ST, not a virus, but a tomato soup, and carried on flipping through smash hits. And then, months later, came the reckoning. My brother John, beloved postman, wearer of shorts in all weathers and general upstanding citizen, came home from his morning rounds positively gagging for sustenance. He turned to the mountain of unlabelled tins, cracked one open, heated it up, and tucked into what he thought was a comforting bowl of chicken soup. It wasn't long before he pulled a face and announced, "This tastes weird." To which my mother, overflowing with maternal warmth, replied, "You're a bit weird."
I love that.
Yeah.
Sounds suspiciously modern to me. The 80s. No mollycoddling, no sympathy, no problem. It was only halfway through the tin that John peeked inside, and there it was. A black, gelatinous, slimy blob of mould that would not have looked out of place in the Quatermass experiment, or Alien 2, or Alien 3. Cue horror, or any of the Alien films.
Yes, yeah.
Cue the horror and cue the drama. He threw the tin away, drank his body weight in water, and carried on being his stoic postman self. We all assumed the danger had passed. Now, as a postman with John's nocturnal shift pattern, plus my younger siblings' impressive commitment to horizontal living, it wasn't unusual to go days without seeing him. He was basically the human equivalent of a B-side on a cassette tape. Technically there, but we rarely played it, so really his absence was of little concern for this 80s vixen.
Vixen?
Lorraine, that's right.
Get you.
But what we didn't know is that the next day, while we tiptoed around the house, John wasn't in his bed. He was actually in hospital. For 2 days on a drip.
Oh, no.
What?
Under observation for possible biohazard exposure while we all pranced around the house in our leg warmers, none the wiser. Why? Because it was the 80s.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
No mobile phones, his bedroom door was shut, and we were under strict instructions not to disturb him on pain of death. Eventually he returned home, none the worse for wear, apart from some lingering trust issues and possibly a mild soup phobia. And so I stand or sit before you, Father Simon, St. Matt, and everyone else listening, to beg, nay, plead for forgiveness, not from the mould creature I accidentally birthed, which I assume now roams free on the Scottish moors, living its best life. Not from my family, who should frankly be thanking me for the extra immune system training, but from John, who survived not only the soup of doom, but 2 days in hospital without a single family member noticing that he was missing. On the plus side, I would have looked absolutely sensational at his funeral.
Sensational.
Yes.
Yeah.
Priorities, darling, says
Wowza.
Lorraine. I'm in Milton Keynes if anyone needs to know that, says Lorraine. Okay. My favourite bit is still the mother saying, "You're a bit weird."
You're a
But
bit
also
weird.
the idea that a member of the family could go to hospital for 2 days and no one even know that you're there. Sister Susie.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen nowadays, would it? I can't imagine just not, have you seen John today? Should we just give him a knock? Check
He's
on
on
his
shift
room.
work. He's on shift work. Don't disturb him.
But I can't believe, I do, Lorraine sounds like my kind of gal. She sounds brilliant, and I am sure I would quite enjoy her having a drink in my pub. That would be fun, but I'm afraid putting that can back is disgusting. I don't like chicken soup either, and I just can't forgive her because
Okay.
look what she did to her brother.
Also, look
He was
what she
in
did to her
hospital.
fringe, back combing it like that, and never looked cool, I don't think. Brother Matthew.
I'm going to forgive Lorraine the vixen, very much so. Big fan, and the reason I'm going to forgive is John should have looked at the tin when he was putting the tin on the hob, well, why wasn't he looking and seeing the big black blob in the middle of the chicken? Because that would have been a sign, John, that you don't eat the chicken. It was a sign, and then he was in hospital. He was fine. He was fine. A great story to tell and regale everyone with about how no one knew that he was so close to death. So for all of those reasons, I'm going to forgive.
61054 for the people's verdict. First word is Simon. Forgiven or not? Before the news, a confession from Lorraine of mixed up soups and a poisoned brother who went to hospital for 2 days without anyone knowing. Did anyone visit? No one visited at all. The people's verdict is in. Here it
and
comes.
Everyone agrees that John should have looked in the can first. So Mike says, forgiven. How did John not notice the mould before tucking into the chicken soup? Sounds a bit daft to me. Lynn in Liverpool, forgiven. He deserves everything he gets. How could he not see the can had already been opened? It's a tin can. It's not like a jar lid had been replaced and put back. Stephen New Brighton, forgiven. I'm of an age that I remember food being kept on a plate in the pantry. And if it became mouldy, then you scraped the mould off. And Tom says, forgiven. You're a bit weird. Brilliant. Best confession for a while.
Okay, well, that's good, but I take that as a little kind of criticism at the end there from Tom.
How? Best confession for a while?
Yeah,
it means we do them well all the time. That's what he means.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure. I think Tom giveth and then taketh away.
Does he?
Your confession, please, for next week. Send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.